Hello geometry students. Today's learning target is to find the midpoint of a segment. So if you look at problem number 1, I have the 2 points labeled, and if you were to find the midpoint, you will find that the midpoint is -1, 4. Remember, the midpoint means the point exactly in the middle. So AM is the same as MB, and I put those red tick marks. If you look at problem number 18, if you were to find the midpoint there, the midpoint is -5, -4 when you find the ordered pair. And again, these segments are equal. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit for problem number 19. And if we look at problem number 19, again, the segments are equal. When you find point M, which is the midpoint, you will find it to be -1, 3. So in class, the goal was to take these 2 points that I've highlighted in yellow for all 3 problems and find the pattern in order to figure out how to get the midpoint if we were not given a graph. So the question of interest is, how do we use the yellow highlighted points A and B to find the midpoint? In class, I'm going to zoom in on problem number 19. What we learned was, if you look at the x values, if you were to add those 2 x values up, -8 plus 6, you get -2. But if you were to divide that by 2, you will get -1. So to get the x value of the midpoint, you add the x's and divide by 2. I'm going to highlight the 8 and -2. If you take 8 plus -2 and divide by 2, that is 6/2, which is equal to 3. So what we learned in class is, in order to find the midpoint, you add the x's and divide by 2. You add the y's and divide by 2. And that's how you find the midpoint. One of your classmates said the formula, x1 plus x2/2. That's just a fancy way of saying add the x's and divide by 2, comma, y1 plus y2/2. So to find the midpoint, you add the x's, divide by 2, you add the y's, and divide by 2. So let's turn the page. We did a couple problems in class. So if we look at problem number 24, we want to add the x values. I highlighted them in green. So I'll say -40 plus 18 divide by 2. Then I'm going to add the y values. I highlighted them in pink. So 82 plus -100 and divide by 2. When we use our calculator, we will get -11, -9. Now, we did talk about in class, when you type this in your calculator, you want to type in parentheses -40 plus 18 parentheses divide by 2. Then for the y, you want to do parentheses 82 plus -100 parentheses divide by 2. So if you want to pause the screen and try problem number 25, please do so, or you may listen. So to find the midpoint, again, we're going to add the x's. So I'm going to take 86 and -44. So 86 plus -44 and divide by 2. Then I'm going to take the y's and divide by 2. So -75 plus -100 divide by 2. When you type those in your calculator, you'll get 21 and -87.5. So that's how you find the midpoint. You add the x's, divide by 2. You add the y's and divide by 2. The second thing we did in class was problem number 27 and 26. So I'm going to scroll back up to number 26. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Here it says, if you have one endpoint and the midpoint, how do you find the other endpoint? And there's a couple ways of doing this problem. One way of doing this problem is I'm going to list point A. Right below it, I will put the midpoint. And the goal is to find the other endpoint, B. So in class, we talked about, well, how do you go from 1 to 5? You add 4. And if it's the midpoint, then to get the y value for B, you would add another 4. So 5 plus 4 is 9. Then if you look at the x, from -8 to 1, you're adding 9. So then you need to add another 9. So if you say 1 plus 9, you will get 10. So the endpoint is 10, 9. I'll use this technique for problem number 27 also. So I'm going to list point A, -13, -14. I'll list point M, 3, -17. And then I need to find B, the other endpoint. So from -14 to -17, you're subtracting 3. So you subtract 3 again, and you'll get -20. Then for the x, from -13 to 3, you're adding 16. So you're going to add 16 again. So 3 plus 16 is 19. So for problem number 27, the midpoint is 19, -20. There is another way of doing this problem, and if you're interested, you could ask, and I will make a second video and send it to you.